Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Patricia Moraes, and I am the Grants and Events Coordinator at the Inter-American Teacher Education Network, or ITEN for short, an initiative of the Organization of American States. I'm pleased to welcome you all to this webinar, one in our series of webinars by the title COVID-19, Teaching STEM in Quarantine. Given by teacher fellows and participants and other supporters of ITEN project teams, this series of webinars objective is to support the efforts of teachers during this time of quarantine. To join future webinars, please visit our webpage, which will be shared at the end of the presentation. Before continuing, I'd like to briefly introduce ITEN to those of you who are not familiar with us. The purpose of ITEN is to improve the quality and equity of education through teacher education in the Americas. To do so, we offer funds and activities for educational leaders with the intent to resolve problems of policy and practice related to STEM teacher education, in which STEM refers to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. To learn more about ITEN and how to get involved, visit our website. Again, the link will be shared at the end of this presentation. This afternoon, we're pleased to have a presentation by Conroy Hall, an ITEN project team member and STEM teacher educator at the Shortwood Teachers College in Jamaica. His presentation will be just under an hour. During the presentation, you're welcome to ask questions using the Q&A tool. At the end of the presentation, he'll answer a select number of questions. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording, as well as the slides, will be linked to the ITEN COVID-19 webinars webpage. In approximately 24 hours, you will receive a notice that the recording is uploaded. The message may also serve as evidence of your attendance in place of a certificate, should you need to show it to your administrators. Additionally, we would like to express our gratitude to the Educational Portal of the Americas, which is providing support to transmit this presentation live via their Facebook page, and especially to our donor, the U.S. Mission to the OAS. At the conclusion of the webinar, please do not forget to complete the brief survey, which will help us in determining future webinars. Thank you very much, and now I'll pass the presentation over to Mr. Hall. Conroy, we can't hear you. I'm not sure if you're already speaking or not, but just so you know, we can't hear you yet.
Thank you. I was actually muted. I go over it. All right, today I will be presenting to you on the effective use of virtual manipulatives to build conceptual understanding in a virtual presentation. I just want to introduce myself to you a little bit more. I have been teaching at the tertiary level for about 18 years. I've been using manipulative for approximately 13 to 15 years. I find virtual manipulative to be very, very helpful And I know at the end of this presentation, you will understand how useful manipulative, virtual manipulative can be in your classrooms. The nature of this webinar is to want to enlighten participants on the various ways that virtual manipulatives can be used. One of the things that I found in virtual manipulative is that it captures student interest in mathematics and science. It can be used in terms of virtual labs. And I will share with you a few of those. In today's presentation, we're going to be defining virtual manipulative, explaining the meaning of conceptual understanding, discuss different types of virtual manipulatives, discuss tools to convert simulation tutorials to tutorials, identify free online and offline virtual manipulatives, and to also discuss ways of identify suitable manipulative and critique the use of virtual manipulative. At this point, I would like you to examine, to give me your feedback in the chat session. What do you think of this cartoon, and what does it say to you by looking at this? Let me see your feedbacks.
Yes. Are you able to see the answers, Conroy?
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm listening to answers.
Now, I was wondering if you were able to see the questions or the answers.
I can see the question, I can see the answer.
Oh, okay, good.
All right, put this here because in some institutions they use a 5E methodology or format, in the sense that we have engagement, exploration, explanation, extended, and evaluation. Now, I can use virtual manipulatives as an engagement in my class. And so I could present this to my students and ask them, what do you think this is saying to them? And so I'm asking you this question in this forum. What is this simulation saying to you? What is it? Can you give me ideas that is coming to your mind that when you look at this simulation, you could say that this is interactive, etc., etc. Okay, calculated distance and time. Okay, anything else? Good, no more response. Great. All right, now conceptual understanding that can be used for future reference. And we understand, especially in the 21st century, that conceptual understanding is very, very important, especially when you have diversity of ideas and concept coming at the learner. And so conceptual understanding is very, very important. Now, Clement spoke about the fact that I stated that the range of types of conceptual change, such as modifying an existing model by adding, removing, changing, is creating new model. And so what we understand is that if students understand the concepts, they're able to build on it. And so as we go through this presentation, I will show you that I will give you that wanting to know more about virtual manipulatives, that conceptual understanding can be built through use of virtual manipulative. Now, their virtual manipulatives can be defined as this. It seems that anything that is based on the internet, based on a computer, based on tablets can be considered to be virtual manipulative. The manipulative in the sense that it can be used to enhance the teaching and learning. A question that someone asked some time ago is that, can I take a video of an experiment and I put it online and call it virtual manipulative? And the answer is no, because it's not based on a software base. It was actually a concrete manipulative that is actually captured by a medium. Now, type of virtual manipulative. Now, virtual manipulative can are actually categorized or classified as static and dynamic. And the word static, as you know, is that it's not moving. So if I show a picture of something, it's in that phase, it's not moving, the images are not moving. And so in that case, it can be considered to be a static virtual manipulative. Then you have dynamic virtual manipulatives. And these virtual manipulatives are things that you can manipulate, you can play around with, and student can interact with the characters on this platform. Now, virtual manipulatives are classified in many forms. I emphasize 3 here, but there are more than 3. Now, the first one is known as the applet, which is actually based on Java. You have Xlet, which is based on Excel, and you have Flashlet, which is actually on Adobe Flash. Now, there's 2 more that actually came on board, and that's the GLet, which is based on GeoGebra, and HMLet, which is based on HTML5. Now, as we go into choosing virtual manipulative, there are certain things that are actually taken from analysis of a mathematics software. And so what are the things that you have to exploit the contrast of the ideal in terms of the machine for mathematics? Can the software build metacognition in terms of student can able to think based on what the software is depicting, or the manipulative depicting. Now, moving on to the benefit of virtual manipulative. And the first, and science, it also reinforces technological skills, which is very, very important, especially in the 21st century. It also motivates students to perform. It offers students an alternative learning modality. And I must say something about this is that because of COVID-19, what has happened is that the regular modality of assessing students has changed, the modality has changed, and so persons are now catering to alternative assessment. And virtual manipulatives become very useful in this type of platform. The other thing is that it offers students out-of-class practice, and I will explain that to you shortly. It also supplements traditional laboratory activities. It also offers experimental skills with materials that cannot be used in the classroom. Adaptability, fit for the in class lesson well. Inexpensive in the sense that when we use, for example, chemical in the labs, we have to replace them, and it takes money, and especially in a developing country, it's very difficult for students and for teachers. And so we find that virtual manipulation become very, very important. Now, in choosing virtual manipulative, this is the key of even this presentation, in the sense that over my years of observing teachers in the field, I have realized that persons are using manipulative, but the concepts are not coming through the use of the manipulative. And so when you're choosing manipulative, you must ensure that they will cover and they will direct the student in the direction you want them to go. And so you have to ensure that you choose the manipulative in that way so that person can be interactive. And so on this slide, I have 5 different ways that you can choose a manipulative. And first I said several factors should be considered when selecting. And so you say, can the level of difficulty be adjusted to fit the students? Will the teacher need or instruction used? Now, the consideration of the teachers are, as you can see, is that the teachers will need to ensure that the computer can support the software. And this is a typical example, as I made mention of Flashlet. In 2016 PowerPoint, Flashlet cannot be used. So SWF files cannot be used in PowerPoint 2016. And so you have to think about some alternative that can be done so as to ensure that students are able to be a part of the lesson. Now, the other thing is that employ inquiry method and with your students. And so can the manipulative be used to stimulate critical thinking? Can it be used for students to solve problem or to create a project? And so can project-based learning, can problem-based learning, can evidence-based learning come through the use of these manipulatives? Now, in considering use of manipulative, when I share with you, especially in COVID-19, there was 2 students in my class that could not be involved in the synchronous classes. And so what I had to do was that I had to create videos for them so that they were able to use it. And so in terms of the technology, does the technology assist the student in getting the desired outcome? Can students be able to use the technology? Can students be able to be a part of the presentation? Was the technology adequate for the task? And so when I use the different virtual manipulatives, there are times a student say to me is that they're unable to understand because the fact that the virtual manipulative did not cater for differentiated instruction. And so what is happening is that it was above the students or below the student level. Now, there are some important things that we have to understand in terms of evaluating manipulative sites. And the first thing is that, is the site easy to find? Are parts of the site easy to use? Are instruction clear on every page? Are the image dynamic and interesting? What type of learning can be achieved using the site? Does the site offer flexibility? If questions are asked, is some type of constructive feedback can be presented to them? Can it be used for virtual lab, especially in this type of setting? Can information be used offline? And so in the situation I shared with you earlier, is that there were 2 students that could not be a part of my class. And so what I had to do was that I had to send recordings to them. And so because they had the software on their system, they were able to perform the task I gave them. So they were able to still do the virtual labs wherever they were. Now, source of manipulative. Now, these are some sources of manipulative. And I will share with you a few of them. Now, at this point, I share with you a few. All right, now this is a manipulative, and it's actually from GeoGeblet. Now this, so I can use it to investigate, and this is actually doing capacitors. And so I could investigate how distance between the plates affect the capacitance. I could also look at how area affects. And so if I move the slider, you will see what's happening at this place. So this can be used in terms of having doing a virtual lab. It also can be used in terms of an engagement, in terms of using my 5 E's. It can also help in terms of eradicating misconceptions that students may have. I will share with you another of this sort. And this is another one. If you look here, and this is actually based on HTML lect. And so when I move my slider, so I can now ask the student to carry out an experiment in terms of virtual lab experiment. Different features of the capacitors affect the capacitance of the capacitor. Now, in choosing the particular software or virtual manipulative, I would need to understand with the type of student I'm dealing with. And so are the student able to manipulate the features or the sliders on the site? Is the site colorful for them to feel a part of, and not to feel bored sitting at a computer? It's not, the colors are not catching their eyes. So if you look at the one I shared with you earlier, and this one, you see that this one has more color. And so you have to take that into consideration. Yes, it can be used offline. Just ask a question, and I'm going to get to that shortly. Because also when you're thinking of virtual manipulative, you have to think about, can it be offline? Can it be used online? And so this one that I'm showing you cannot be used offline. And I'm addressing some of the questions that you asked as I move on to my next slide. Yes, the virtual manipulative, you can actually You can actually create virtual manipulatives, and there are sites that you can go to create that. All right, there's another type of manipulator I will share with you in terms of can it be used in using a STEM approach. And so I'm going to share with you another virtual manipulative that I can use, and it's known as Fission. And so what we found with Fission is that in this, student can actually create things here. And so their creative minds can actually come alive. The creative minds can be alive in terms of creating all of these different things. And I'll share with you something here. That's good. Okay. And so I run. All right, so this is a virtual manipulator that can be created by students, it can be created by teachers. Another thing that we have to take in consideration as we think about virtual manipulatives is that, does it relate to a real life setting? And so I'm going to share with you this as I make mention that the virtual manipulative must stimulate conceptual understanding among your students. And so I will share with you and this is also free, so person may ask, is this so cool? So we're going to number line and numbers. So I'm looking at fraction. I'm selecting. Now this is a flashlight. And I go, and so this is something the student would be familiar with in terms of the fact that they've seen their mother using a blender in the classroom, in their homes, and so they will be able to apply the use of the blender with fraction and ingredient and proportionalities and all the other things that could relate to this concept. And so this is known as a flashlight. Now, the question that some person may ask, and is something that we need to understand, that there are many virtual manipulatives out there. And so can my virtual manipulative get what I want the student to know? And so the type of questions that you may ask may affect the way the student understand the concepts. And so the fact that although I use this virtual manipulative in a virtual space, the student can go home, or if they're already home, they could actually carry out this activity. And so I would ask them to measure the amount of water that they will use to make mango juice, so for example. And so the ingredient of the ratio in terms of ingredients and in terms of fraction, could that come out of the doing all these things? And so this virtual manipulative can become very useful to the students. And so what I just share with you is that the use of virtual manipulative bringing the real life setting alive. Now, comparing virtual manipulative, and I share with you earlier two virtual manipulatives that were used to explain the concept of capacitor. And so this is another virtual manipulative. And out this virtual manipulative, now, if you make a comparison with the virtual manipulator that you're now seeing on the screen with the one that was created from GeoGebra, or the one that was created by the website which was on HTML5, you realize that there are differences in terms of graphic and terms of color. And so when you're choosing a virtual manipulative, you have to ensure that another thing is that it's not too much information is not on the site or on the screen. Now, this virtual manipulative can be used, and so the student actually could be involved with this. And so when I increase, for example, increase, what are you noticing, students? You're seeing the capacitance changing. If I decrease it, and so fear test could also come in place here, right? Because I would have to ensure that separation, I realize that the separation is constant. Now, I could take this virtual manipulative a little more deeper, where I could ask the students to find different values of the area, and how does area affect the capacitance. And so they could actually draw a graph to show this. And so the mathematical skills could be reinforced in this. So virtual manipulation also allow you to have integration across the different subject areas, and it could also help you to have integration within the subject area, because this, if I put on the electric field, for example, and I select electric field and I go here, the student will not see anything until I move, and so they can now see an electric field, and I can say, oh, so when I increase the voltage, how is that affecting my, and so they would have done electric field earlier. So what I'm simply saying is that the use of the virtual manipulator could also help in terms of having integration across the subject areas, and could also have integration within the subject area. But you have to ensure that you choose the right virtual manipulative. I made mention of that in terms of the question that you ask. You have to ensure that you ask the right question in terms of virtual manipulative. And I put this here because the fact that, and there are virtual manipulative that can do all these things these questions that I've asked. So what is the gestation period of a cow? Tell me about the period. Now, so the point is that what is closed, and tell me about it. So tell me what happened when your mother carried out an investigation to find out which nutrients is better for growth. And so it creates an open-ended question. The frictional force act on the parachute. And so when I give them a virtual manipulative that deals with frictional force, if I just ask them, does frictional force act on it? And they say yes. It simply means that the manipulative would not be practical, it would not be useful, it would not do what it ought to do. And so when you ask, describe the force acting on it, and I will share with you a manipulative that can do that. Now, I asked this question here. And I'm going to manipulate this, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions. And you can respond in the okay, great. Now I'm going to ask you, now this, let it a little bigger. Now, for example, I want to do some manipulation here. And so I go, okay, now this is very important, and I take you here. And I say this with, my daughter is actually in grade 4, and about 2 weeks ago, a teacher was teaching the concept that area is height by width. And that is a conceptual problem. Because if the fact is that I want to find the floor, the area of my floor, I'm doing tiling, and I want to find the area of my floor, can you identify the height? And so the use of virtual manipulatives can help to correct that type of setting. And so if you look here, you find that it's A times B. And so it's one length by the other length. And so that's why I say 9 by 10, which gives me 90. And so the things that the student could manipulate this to get different readings. And this is one use of a virtual manipulative. Let me go back. All right, so I'm sharing with you another virtual manipulative, which is used offline to bring out a concept. Okay. All right, and so what I'm sharing with you is actually another virtual manipulative, and this is offline, and this is actually from a flashlight. And so we understand the geometry is a problem for some students, and so they could manipulate this. They could turn it to the left, they move their ruler. And so the student can also use a virtual manipulative outside of a class setting to actually practice how to actually manipulate and how to actually draw lines properly in terms of minimizing parallax and all the other things that may come about in terms of measurement. In terms of they can actually use their compass to actually draw a line in terms of the arc. And so they can manipulate. And so in terms of their concept, and so this in terms of bisection, in terms of all the other things that relate to math, in terms of sketching, in terms of constructing, so the student could actually do this before they actually go in. So another thing is that virtual manipulative can also help the student outside of the class setting and also help them to improve on the skill that you as, or we as teachers would want the student to develop. And so virtual manipulative can be very helpful in terms of developing that skill. Now, I share with you a question, and I hope someone can answer the question, this question in the forum. And so it's the sum of these two numbers. And it's quite easy. So can I see answers so far? Anybody responding to this particular question? Anyone want to answer this question for me? Oh, let's see, someone answer the question. Not seeing the question? Oh, I thought. All right, hope you all seen the question now. And so the question is, consider the sum of this number. So I give the student, someone answering the question. Great. Great, 2. And so I would say you are right. 2, 2, great. And so I ask this question because the fact that there are manipulatives that can help the student to understand that in terms of finding the answer for this, you could do something in terms of finding equivalent fraction. And so there are software that actually show them how to actually find the equivalent fraction in terms of with the similar denominator. And so the student could able to answer this question. So I could, if there are students having challenges in terms of answering this question, I could give them a software or give them a virtual manipulative that will help them to deal with this, to help them to deal with answering the question. And so I could now use differentiated instruction. Now, this question is a little, and so this is now building the concepts that we want the student to understand. And so I know that there are many bright persons in this forum. And so I will ask the question, what fraction of the floor has been tiled? Sorry. Let me see your responses. I ask this question because this is building concepts. And someone said 3/8. Great. Now, the fact that, and someone says 3/8, can everybody say that's correct? Let me see all my other responses to this particular question. Beautiful. Someone agrees. Beautiful. And somebody has 9/24. And so that's correct in terms of counting number spaces here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 3, it gives me 12. And they're cut in halves. And so in that case, I would have 24. And so now I count the number of spaces. It can be done that way. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there are manipulatives that can do this. And so the student will be able to see, oh, I could end up having an equivalent fraction coming out of this. Let me see your response, somebody else. The third, someone said, okay, great. Now, the point is that, how is this helpful to the student or students? It sense that what I've found out is that persons can be very theoretical, but not practical. And so a student may understand how to find the area of something like this, like a figure like this. But when you ask a student to find the area of their room because they want to tile it, they're unable to do so and unable to tell you how much tiles are needed. But the use of virtual manipulative and to manipulate, and so I could now use my virtual manipulative as a stimulant for a conceptual, to develop conceptual understanding, but I also could use it in terms of performance assessment. And so the student could now use a virtual manipulative so as to help them to carry out a practical assessment. Now, I just want to go to some sample. Now, this is a sample offline activity, and this was given to some teachers. And so I share with you so this was activity. So, they would download Flashlight, they explore, to teach in terms of the geometry and CSEC classes. This is also one that could be used. All right, I know that we're actually coming to the end, so I want to open the floor shortly for questions. But before I end my presentation, I want to share with you some other Okay. Now, this virtual manipulative, and actually I'm coming to the end of my presentation. The question we ask sometimes, can this virtual manipulative use in another country that does not speak English, Brazil, for example, and so this virtual manipulative, as you can see, there are different maps there. They can be used with different languages, and so one manipulative. Now, as I'm coming to the end of my presentation, there are some concepts that students have their cannot understand. And so especially kinematics is a very difficult area for some students. And so as you can see here, there are different virtual manipulatives that deal with kinematics. I'll just go here though, because this I found and I explain why I'm using this. I teach applied math, and I realized that the math students are unable to apply the math. Teaching body on a slope, the student see the different forces acting. But this particular software now uses as a presentation for students to follow, and so they could actually do this, and they could actually do it in terms of drawing, but they could also do it on their system. And so it takes you through the different steps. And so when we talk about the fact that does the manipulative cater for conceptual understanding, these are some of the things that we're talking about. So you can see what's happening here. And I go to my 7th. And so the student could actually see what happened in terms of resolving a force on the slope. And so they'll be able to now apply this to being in a car going down the slope or going up the slope. At this point, I will open the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Conroy. That was a great presentation. I'm going to be fielding the questions here for Conroy, so please do write your questions in the Q&A tool. We did have a couple before. Here, Mrs. Sterling asked, are there any manipulative website that allows for the teacher to create his or her own manipulatives?
There are. Gingerbread is, if I share with you, let me share with you. All of these things that are created, so you see the capacitor, there are many more for biology, could be fraction, but all of these were created by educators and posted on the site. So you can actually do this. You can be very interactive. You can edit it if you want to. You can change something on it if you need to. So yes, you can use, there are softwares that can be used. And this is one of them.
Perfect.
Over to you.
I'm sorry, did you have another?
I share with you in terms of um, Fission, that can also be used.
Quick question, Conroy. Are you still sharing your screen or no?
I'm sharing, I should be sharing my screen. I thought you.
Okay, no. I just wanted to make sure.
I thought I was sharing.
Yes, it is. It is. I'm
Okay.
sorry, it is. I just wanted to make sure that you still wanted to be sharing it.
Yes, I'm getting it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No problem. So
You're seeing my screen, right?
yes.
Great.
Yes. Thank you. I have another question here from Merlene Harris asking, can
Beautiful.
GeoGebra be used offline?
So this is another one that can be used. Okay.
Can you repeat that, please? I think you got cut off.
It can.
It can be used offline.
Perfect. Yes, it can use offline. It can be used offline. FET and GeoGebra can be used offline. Yes.
Perfect.
And it can also be used on the tablet.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm saying that it can be used offline, and it can be used on a tablet. It can be used on your mobile devices.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. We have somebody asking that these are very interesting tools, but with them, is it possible that students lose the ability to calculate?
Someone asked a question. Should I? I'm happy that you mentioned that or asked that question. You will select the tool based on the student manipulative that will do all the work for them. And so you have to make the selection as the educator.
Great. Can you hear me okay, Conroy?
I'm hearing you, yes, sure.
Okay, perfect. We have somebody asking if you could show the sites again.
Not a problem.
I want to see like what the actual what the sites are, the addresses or the how to access the sites.
I must share with you that a login app is it can be used offline, it can be used online. There are demo versions, but this, you would have to pay for it. But there are some that are you can use. The good thing about this, it can be used on your tablets, and the other good thing about it is that it offers 3D simulation.
Wonderful. And just as a reminder, Conroy, your slides will be available on the I-10 website in about 24 hours, as well as the recording. So don't, for everyone who's rushing to get the to write down the websites, don't worry about it. The slides will be available on the I-10 website for everyone to access. So thank you so much for sharing them anyway. Let's see, we have other questions here. Are Flash applets that I downloaded in the past will no longer run in my browser? Is there any software to run them? Not sure I understand the question. Conroy, can you still hear me? Conroy?
Um, there is a software known as SWF downloader that can be used. It can. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you clearly. Are you hearing me?
Okay, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay. Okay, great.
I'm hearing you.
Great, you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's a software. Okay, there is a software known as SWF player that can play it in Explorer, Internet Explorer. What I did earlier, or running it using Internet Explorer. So it can be, there are software that can be used to do so.
Okay, perfect. We
Any
have
other
a question from Andrea. Let's see, could these be modified to use with special needs students?
Sure. And there is a research that was done. I can expose you to it, that found out that virtual manipulative is very, very useful with special needs students. So yes, it can.
Okay.
And it can be modified. Yes, you could modify it. Yes.
Wonderful, thank
The
you.
other thing is that just to add to the modification of the use, as the educator, you could choose, because there are several manipulatives out there that can be used. So you as the educator could make a selection based on your learning needs of your students. And so you're able to adjust their needs, better able to just adjust their needs.
Perfect. We have another question here that says, would you say the use of virtual manipulative makes efficient use of contact time with students? I find a lot of time is spent manipulating the manipulatives.
And that's a very good question. And it goes, you as the educator, you would have to decide I shared with you earlier 3 manipulative, one from Fed, one from GeoGebra, one from this particular website, and they all have different functionalities. And so you would have to identify the type of student you're working with and adjust, you will have to adjust their need based on that. So you would not give them a slide that has a lot of manipulation because it may affect the concepts being taught. With me still?
Hi, okay, great. We have a question from Natalie Davis saying, how can I use this to teach grade 1 students?
All right, I could share with, there are also virtual manipulatives there. I just share with a few. When you want to identify virtual manipulative, you could maybe Google it and ask to virtual manipulative to teach at grade 1. There are several from various sites that you can use to teach at the grade 1 level.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see. I'm actually going to go ahead, Conroy, and share my screen now.
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you. And I want to ask if we have any more questions from the audience out there. I would like to suggest it. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? You can ask either in the Q&A tool or in the chat tool. Well, I don't see any more questions at this time. So I want to take this. Moment and thank Conroy very much for the wonderful presentation, as well as everyone who joined us this afternoon. And I'm assuming, Conroy, can you see my screen?
Sure, I can.
Okay, perfect. So that means everybody else can as well. So as you can all see here, you can go to www.oas.org/en/I10, and that's where you will find both the slides and the recording for today's session within 24 hours. So just as a reminder, I know we get a couple of questions every once in a while saying, you know, I haven't received my my email, saying that because we've mentioned in the beginning of the presentation that within 24 hours you should receive an email that will basically serve as your certificate of participation in today's webinar. So if you know, please give it 24 hours so that you can, and if you don't get it, go ahead and send us an email, but you should receive it, and you should be able to go onto our website and also see the recording and the slides, and also check out the upcoming webinars that we have. So once again, Conroy, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and a wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who took the time to join us today and for all the great questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.